Welcome to the Mike and Alison After Hours podcast with your hosts, mshelah and Alison Haas, talking business with real business owners in the Mid-Atlantic region. Today's episode is sponsored by Advantage Industries. When you need business technology, get Advantage Industries to protect and promote your business. To learn more, go to www.getadvantage.com and schedule your first meeting to see if you qualify for a free network scan.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mike and Alison After Hours. I am your host, mshelah, and normally this is the point where I would introduce my always awesome and always on point co-host, Alison Haas. Alison is under the weather today, so we are sending all of our love and positive vibes to her and hope that she comes back to us very soon. But we've been gone for a while. Our last episode train wrecked, quite frankly, as they do from time to time. That is the joy and excitement of trying to schedule 3 different calendars all at the same time. But we are back. We are excited to introduce our guest today. But before I get to Dr. Dee Bowden, don't forget, we have a giveaway. You may remember Gloria Larkin, one of our GovCon experts that was on a few months ago. She has published numerous books, and she is giving away one of those, and she's going to autograph it for you, and she's going to mail it right to you. And you're wondering, well, Mike, how do I get a copy of said book for free? Now, of course, you can go to Amazon and buy your own copy, but if you'd like to win the one that we're giving away, it's really simple. All you have to do is subscribe to the show on either YouTube or your favorite podcast platforms, which include Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Amazon Alexa, Amazon Audible, you name it. You can find our show on the favorite podcast platforms. So you like the show, you drop a comment, and you share it on social media. That could be LinkedIn, that could be Twitter, that could be Facebook, that could be Instagram, wherever you like to do your social media stuff. And tag either myself or Alison to let us know that you shared the show, and that's your entry. And we will be giving away Gloria's book on the next episode, which will be the first one in April. So very exciting stuff. And speaking of exciting stuff, I'm so happy to have a longtime networking friend of mine, Dr. Dee Bowden, the founder of BCS Solutions, on today. And wow, talk about a fantastic career and background. She worked for the DoD for many years, and she now runs her own successful business and has done that for many years. She is now a published author, and you know we're going to talk about the new book that she just published. And you can even find shots of that book on Times Square in New York City. And so Dee is doing incredible things. So Dr. Dee Bowden, welcome to Mike and Alison After Hours. We're so excited to have you today.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to your fabulous audience around the world. Yes, I am Dr. Dee Bowden. Mike, you know I am so excited to be here. I told you before we got started, man, I woke up excited and energized to have this conversation with you. And yes, we've definitely been networking buddies for a long time. So an honor to be here. Excited to have a great conversation. You've got your coffee. I've got my tea.
I was going to say, maybe the caffeine has a little do.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Level of excitement.
Let's get it.
So if you're watching the episode today, I probably look a little different. I am coming to you live from the offices of Magic, which are located on Main Street in Westminster, which I call home. They're doing some interesting work in my normal studio today. That's the nice thing about podcasting is if you have the room, you can travel. So the audio probably sounds a little different as well. The acoustics in this room are a little different, but it's all exciting. It's all fun. So Dr. Dee Bowden, the first segment today, we're going to go through who, what, where, when, why, how. And that is your opportunity to tell the audience all about you, your business, your experience, and then in the second half, we're going to drill down into this fantastic new book that you've published. So, Dr. Dee Bowden, please tell us who, what, where, when, why, how are you?
Well, oh my gosh, all the questions, all the things. Well, like I say, good morning, y'all. So I'm Dr. Dee Bowden. I'm affectionately known as Dr. D. So let's start off with all the good things. So I'm originally from Boston. I now live in the great state of Maryland. Fun facts about me. I love Ferris wheels, smooth jazz, and great wine, both red and white. Let's see. So who, what, where. I moved here 16 years ago for my career, and then eventually launched my business, BCS Solutions. So I think I answered all the things. Oh, and then of course I have a story. So how did I get to become Dr. D? Well, actually now it's just, how did I get to become Dr. D? So about 15 years ago, I used to work for a small IT company outside of Boston, where I'm from. You know how it is when you get hired with a company. Welcome aboard. Here's your cubicle. Here's your box. Here's your plant. And they said, oh, and by the way, we've got $8 million in outstanding receivables that we need you to collect. And I was like, I kind of looked like Mike. That had that same expression. I thought they were kidding. They're like, no, for real.
$8 million.
$8 million in AR. Now, you have to understand, this was a small company. We're talking less than 100 people, and they actually had a collections team. When I got hired, I was a part-time collector. I worked Monday through Friday, 4 to 8. It's okay. They're like, here. So they've got contracts with, major corporations, government agencies, all the things. And I said, they're like, here, our team has not been able to crack this nut. We need you to figure it out and get this money collected. Okay, cool. I'm a believer. I had a short conversation with God, and when I got my clue, I figured out that business to business collections is 3 things. It's problem solving. It's answering the question of what had happened was. Because anytime the sale doesn't go through and the money doesn't end in the bank, you got to answer the question of what had happened was. So that's the first thing. So problem solving. Second thing is customer service. Mike, you and I both know, because we deal with customers all the time. Customer service is everything. When there's a problem, or actually when things go well, people want to know that they're seen and they're heard and that they're respected. And most importantly, that you're going to solve their problem. And then the third thing, which is kind of an intangible, is gratitude. We started off the show. The first thing I said was, thank you for having me be a guest. I'm a big believer in gratitude. In gratitude, people are like, you're talking about saying thank you for getting paid. Yes, when people owe you money, when they pay you. Yes, when you stop and tell the person who helped you cut that check, thank you. Yeah, that part. So $8 million, short talk with God. I get my 3 clues. I go back to my cubicle, and I'm like, okay, problem solving. So I have an $8 million problem. I start with what, you're in sales. You're on the phone. Hi, this is D. I'm calling from such and such company. I need to speak to the person accounts payable, please. Oh, hey, Susie, how are you? I'm great, D. How are you? Listen, this account is past due. Yeah, that's because we changed our billing system. So one of the problems was they changed their billing system. It'd be like going from Microsoft Excel to say QuickBooks. The company said they sent out a notice to everybody. Evidently, the people at my company didn't get it. My former company didn't get it. And I'm like, so you're telling me that 2 million of the 8 million could be collected if we would reformat our invoices and resubmit them in the new system? Yep. Can you send me an email? Sure thing. I take the email to the comptroller, and she is absolutely like blown away. She's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. $2 million with one phone call is collected. Now, when I say problem solving, that's it. Because accounts receivable in business is the non-sexy, non-fun thing. Nobody really want to have to ask anybody, especially if you have payment terms of net 30, net 60, or net 90. Nobody wants to have to ask anybody for payments, but it happens. Now, unless you get your transaction, your payment up front, everybody's using net 30, net 60, net 90. Most people in business are pretty good with net 30 because you've got enough cash flow to handle everything for the first 30 days. It's when it gets sticky, is when it gets to 60 days and 90 days and beyond. And that happens to be my expertise. So back to the story. So in 60 days, I collect $6 million. Now, mind y'all, I'm still a part-time person at this time, Monday through Friday, 4 to 8, which is great. So I collected $6 million. Fantastic. This is why Collect the Cash got started. The CEO of the company says, listen, let's come downstairs and have a chat. Now, Mike, if you do sales, you get a commission for whatever you sell. I'm thinking in AR, we're about to get a bonus. Nope, no way. Come downstairs. He says, listen, thank you all across all the departments. So that's sales, contracts, order entry, order fulfillment, invoicing, and receivables. Me. Thank you all. We've made an executive decision, and we're closing the company today. Y'all got 30 minutes to go get that same box that you came up in here with and leave the building. This is 2 months before Christmas. The entire company is shut down. 100 people, including me, lose their job. Now, I usually take a pause, even though that happened to me years ago. Mike, I'm sure you probably have something in your career or in your business, like most of us. There's that life-changing moment. You're like, this really just happened? Like, seriously, this is how we're closing out this year. 2 months before Christmas, you shut down the company. First of all, you get all the money, you shut down the company, and then all of us are out of a job. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't tell your audience that I honestly was like, I was upset. I'm not gonna lie. I was seriously upset.
As you should be.
It wasn't, because here's the thing. It wasn't just me. It was all of my whole collection team, and then the entire company. I'm watching everybody, cry. What am I gonna do? I'm planning for Christmas, et cetera, et cetera. So after I get over that, I, fast forward, I'm still doing in my career. And then a few years ago, I launched my business, BCS Solutions. And here's why. After working for that company that was a small business, I started to ask the question, I wonder how many other small businesses or small and medium-sized businesses have AR issues, but they just don't want to tackle it. So they keep sweeping it under the rug, sweeping it under the rug. And I'm like, okay, I have to find a way to interrupt this conversation or disrupt this conversation and start bringing accounts receivable to the conversation. So I figured out that sales and AR go together. So I figured, okay, good. I have to have more sales buddies and more sales conversations and talk about why sales and AR go together. And my book is called Collect the Cash. The sale is not complete until the money's in the bank. And I add this part, but you must collect it first. And so fast forward to 2020, I'm watching COVID and I'm watching all these companies shut down, company after company after company. I'm watching, for example, I love theater. So this is personal. So when I saw Broadway shut down, we're talking a multi-million-dollar business. When Broadway shut down, I'm thinking about
Poop got real.
The show. Say it again.
Poop got real.
Yeah, stuff really got real. Exactly. And so Broadway shuts down. I happen to love the theater. For all my theater people out there, I'm sure you all probably felt the same thing I did, which is this. Okay, Broadway shuts down. So that means every theater in New York City is closed, which also means that there were contracts for small businesses to sell tchotchkes, T-shirts, whatever. I'm looking at my story that I just shared at the beginning of the show, relive on a big screen over and over and over again. So I'm looking at missed sales, missed AR, missed payments, all the things. And then it really got real when actors started having to ask people, can you make a donation to our such and such fund? Because we need to be able to pay people. People are losing homes and apartments. So I'm watching this and I'm thinking about, okay, what can we bring to the market that can make a difference? And so I see all the other businesses that probably had contracts and had AR, and they're like, I'll get around to it. And so when Mike said we need to talk about this, it's because Mike knows sales, I know AR. And so it's one of those things that most people are like, I don't want to have to ask my customer for the payment. Well, here's the thing. I'd say this. If you were confident enough to ask for the sale, you have to be just as confident to ask for the payment, because they go together.
Indeed.
They absolutely go together.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there is so much to unpack there, Dr. D. Thank you.
Sure.
So first, I have enough experience in the collection world to be dangerous. So very early in my career, in my mid-20s, I worked for a collection agency in Baltimore for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was on the personal collection side, for
consumer
credit,
side,
distressed credit. So it's a slightly different conversation, but one of the things that you just brought out, I think, is critical for our audience to understand is having a sales mindset going into a collections process yields great success. And I don't think a lot of people recognize that, because as your example pointed out, probably 7 times out of 10, the reason the money's not paid is a simple, fixable thing that once a line of communication is open, resolves the matter and the money starts flowing in again. Now, for the remaining 3 out of 10, the remaining 30%, you do have to roll up your sleeves. Sometimes you have to get aggressive. Sometimes you have to use the leverage that you have. And that's unfortunate. But that is... It's just business. It's a very tangible part of the business world. And your story about being literally thrown out on the street with a box in your hands, to say that I have been there, yes. And I think most of our audience has been there. And I think anybody that has been in business for themselves can appreciate that unfortunately still does happen.
Yes.
In the business world. They call it a RIF now, reduction in force. They're a little more kind about it because they tend to give you 3 months or 6 months of salary, as opposed to just saying, hey, we're closing our doors, pack your box and get.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But a very real, very human conversation that you just shared with us there. So I'm grateful for that. And the book came out of COVID. And we're going to start talking about the book in just a minute. I tell people all the time that while I would never wish something like COVID to ever happen again,
Right.
it was very transformational for my career professionally. COVID was the inspiration for doing this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
COVID changed my job title to Director of Marketing and Business Development. So it did a lot of things that my company catalyzed and I catalyzed to make 2021 one of our most successful years ever. And I think that's a good takeaway for our audience as well, because in every adversity, there is a true seed of opportunity. And
Absolutely.
I think that's what you've articulated so well with your story. So, yeah, I want to talk about the book now. But before we do, please tell our audience how to get in touch with you if they want to work with you. Is that email? Is that social media? Is that a phone number, website, all of the above? Tell us how to get in touch with Dr. Dee Bowden.
Sure thing. So listen, if you are a business that's got AR issues and you need to have a conversation, please go to www.collectthecash.biz. That's www.collectthecash.biz. There's a link that says schedule a call with Dee. Schedule a call with me. Bring your AR. Let's talk about it, and then let's figure out what we can do to get you paid. Because here's the thing, I don't want to see another. I am very passionate about this. I don't want to see another small or medium-sized business go out of business because they won't get the assistance that they need to get their payments. And here's the thing, when you started your business, like all of us, including Mike, including me, we had a brilliant idea, whatever time of day or night it was. We had this great idea. Listen, we're going to come into the marketplace and we're going to do this and we're going to help people do da 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 da. Well, in my case, I started BCS Solutions because of what happened to me personally, and then I really wanted to be able to leave a legacy. And so, and you know, as I'm getting older and I think about, okay, what am I going to be able to leave behind? So, you know, we're going to talk about the book, but the business got started because of seeing people not deal with this very important part of the sales process. So I usually tell another story about this. So I tell people this way. So if you are team iPhone or Android, you really will appreciate this. So imagine going into your phone store and they say, "Hey, Mike, welcome to such and such store. Listen, can I have your driver's license?" So they check who you are, and then they'll say, "Mike, did you know your phone was eligible for an upgrade?" They already started the sales process before. You're like, "My phone was working just fine. I just have one question." Next thing you know, they're telling you about the new phone, and it's whatever, iPhone or Android. It's whatever the next thing is. And so next thing you know, you're like, "Well, you know, I hadn't thought about upgrading, but since you mentioned it, let me take a look." So the salesperson will tell you, take a walk around the store, find the new phone you want. Before you know it, you've already started having a sales conversation. Next thing you know, you're about to enter a new contract because they'll tell you, we can take a credit from your old phone, put it to your new phone. You can pay the difference. Then you're like, okay, order fulfillment. They take the back of the box. There's a barcode, so they're scanning the barcode, putting all the information into the system. So you've got a sale, a new contract, order entry, order fulfillment. Mike, accounts payable, when would you like your invoice? Oh, you look on the day and you're like, you know what, I pay all my bills on this date. So accounts payable has already started. They schedule your payments. Then you say, I'm going to pay it on this day. Then, so you got sales, contracts, order entry, order fulfillment, accounts payable. And then they say, okay, your payment, please. You swipe your debit card, your credit card, or you pay cash, and then you wait for these two magical words, transaction approved. You don't get to leave the store unless you have transaction approved. What I just described to you is what happens in business at a very granular level, but those are the things that happen, and that's why it's so important that you're tracking. So part of why BCS Solutions exists is to teach you how to take that process and track all those things. What gets tracked gets measured. And part of why AR gets neglected is because it doesn't get tracked, it doesn't get measured, because everybody is focused on the front end. The first thing I talked about was the sale. Because of course, that's the most sexy part. Everybody wants to sell, everybody wants to hype, everybody wants other things. But after the sale is complete is where the rubber meets the road, and that's where the work takes place. And of course, that's the contract and the entry and the payables, and then my lane receivables. It's that part. And when you understand that you as a business owner are responsible for all those things, and you have a system, a tracking system, a whiteboard, whatever you use to know how many sales you have, how many customers you have, how many invoices are due in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. When you do that, that's how you know how you can plan your cash flow. Part of why people get caught short is because they don't track this stuff, because they're like, oh, I got the sale. Well, no, did you have a signed contract? Number one. Number two, did you do the deliverable? Did you do what the contract said? Number three, did you bill your client? Oh, I forgot to bill them. How do you forget to bill somebody? Seriously? Nah, you got to do that part. You got to bill them. And then you got to collect the cash, which is my part. The sale that says collect the cash. The sale is not complete until the money's in the bank, but you must collect it first. And if you're not really good with that part, then you need to bring other people on board to assist you with that part. Because I get it. All of us are not good at all things. We're not. Listen, we're just not. Every business has its strengths and weaknesses. Play to your strength, and then get the assistance that you need to help you with the parts where you're weak at. So there you go. That's why BCS Solutions exists.
Wow. I am so glad you said that. Our audience knows almost every episode I use this quote: do what you do best and outsource the rest. You have a particular niche, a skill, an expertise that people will pay money for. That's what you should focus your time, your effort, your energy on. You have to get good at the sale of whatever that is, whether you're selling widgets, you're selling consulting, or everything in between. You have to get really good at that. And as you pointed out, which I absolutely love, is that once it's sold, now you have to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
And your accounting is just one of, let's call it 100 steps that goes into a successful customer relationship. And I am a book nerd. One of my favorite books is called The Challenger Customer. And it's the sequel to the Challenger Sales Model, which I also loved. But I talk so much more about the Challenger Customer because it gives great insight to the customer's buying process.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a great quote in the book where they say, the only thing harder than you making a sale is your customer buying. And along with that, I'm reading another book, which I'll put in the show notes because the name is escaping me. But it had a very powerful page a couple of weeks ago that said, what barriers have you put up to people buying from you? Do you make it really easy for people to buy from you?
Mm-hmm.
If not, why? And there's this notion, and we've all heard this, I've always done it that way, or that's how everyone else does it. Okay, well, if you'd like better results, perhaps you should think about doing things differently, removing your barriers of entry. And that can mean many things. It is worth brainstorming that with somebody that thinks differently than you. That's one of the best things that you can do. One of the great dynamics in my office is I work with a brain trust of 3 other people on a daily basis. Now, my company, not my company, but my president's company, Advantage Industries, we have 35 employees now. But I work with these 3 men every day. And to say that the 4 of us have diverse thinking processes is an understatement. And I had a conversation with my direct manager yesterday and said, look, it is really important that from time to time, you and I argue about things, that we clash, because that's how we're going to push through to the next level. So thank you, Dr. D, for bringing that to the surface, because I think our audience is going to have some great food for thought from your content there. And speaking of content, let's get into the book. Give us the title. I know it's been out for a little while now.
Yep.
Where can people buy it? Why should they buy it? What are the principles that you're going through in the book? And maybe a little bit, was this your first time writing? And how arduous was that, or how easy was it? Normally, my co-host Alison would do that as our author in residence, but I'm going to do my best to wing it. So please tell us all about this fantastic book you wrote.
Sure thing, Mike. Well, first of all, thanks. So the book is actually called Collect the Cash. The sale is not complete until the money's in the bank. So the backstory, why did I write the book? COVID. My book coach was actually doing some Facebook Lives, and she kept saying, you can write a book in 90 days or less. And I was like, this sounded like an infomercial for real. I'm like, you can do what? She's like, yeah, you can write a book in 90 days or less. And I was like, she just, you know how on Facebook Live they do these ads, and she was doing Facebook Live. She kept saying this, and so finally she had a workshop, and I went to her webinar, and I listened to her, and I was like, this is interesting. Now, I've been a part of 2 anthologies. I was a part of something called Entrepreneur Elevation, which is kind of the precursor to Collect the Cash. So I have a chapter in that book called, at the time it was called How Secure Is Your Cash Flow. That wasn't really resonating with everybody, so we changed it to Collect the Cash. Everybody gets that. So that was a precursor. So I did a chapter in that book called Entrepreneur Elevation with Dr. Cheryl Wood. And then did another anthology called Soulful Prayers Volume 2, and I wrote a prayer about forgiveness. And I'll tell you why this matters, because in business and in life, there are times you have to forgive yourself, and you have to forgive things that happen to you so that you can move on and move forward. Like in the case of that company that went out of business, I had to forgive them and forgive me, because, I had a lot of anger at the time. I'm way past that now. But the point is that's all of that was how did this started. So I'm watching this ad about you can write a book in 90 days or less. And so I go take her webinar, and then have a conversation with her, kind of like what you and I are doing today. And I said, so I can actually learn how to write a book in 90 days. She's like, yeah. Now, she doesn't mean the entire book. She means getting the outline and getting everything together. But in 90 days, she's like, we can do this. She goes, what do you do? So I told her the story, and she goes, Dee, you are brilliant. You got a system. You can teach small business owners how to win. It's a direct quote. And we have like a whole hour and a half interview about this whole thing after the book comes out. But she says, Dee, you have a system. You have a why. Your why is that you don't want to see another small business go out of business. And if you can teach them how to track their payments, how to do problem solving, how to do customer service, and how to express gratitude, and how to prepare a proper invoice, she goes, you've got a system. You have her direct quote, you have to teach us how to win. And so she was relentless she's like, no, we have to work together. We have to work together. I need you to teach us how to win. And she said, imagine I'm a small business owner and I don't have the system that you describe. And she said, I need that. And now I can teach my writers that when they create their book, they're creating a business, and they can create a system as well. So we work together. I get my 90 days in, and then I'm like, okay, I still need some help. So to my point about how you have to get assistance. So I had a book coach, I had a writing coach, and then I finally found a publisher who read this story, and she says, oh, this is really good. You actually do have a system for business owners, small ones in particular. I'd be honored to publish your book. And so, we went through the process. And then last year, April 20th, 2021, the book came out. Actually, next month, it'll have been out for a year. And yes, I launched it in Times Square on a billboard, which is absolutely amazing. It was a magical moment. It was, a very emotional moment, because you can imagine I'm telling that story about working for the company that went out of business. But I also talk about in the book about being fired for the very work that I do. And how in life and in business, you're going to have things that happen to you. And where is your perseverance after the thing happens to you? How do you get back up again? So Collect the Cash is my journey from working for a company that went out of business, being fired from a company who said, I don't know how to collect money, to going on to working for the United States Coast Guard headquarters and recovering $7.5 million, supporting Department of Defense and collecting millions of dollars, being recognized by the Coast Guard for that. And other great things. And as Mike alluded to earlier, I'm officially Dr. Dee Bowden. I actually just received an honorary doctorate degree for what I do in collections. Actually, why they honored me is because I have a way of thinking about accounts receivable.
That's fantastic. I didn't know that was the origin of it. That's fantastic. Congratulations. Thank you.
So the origin was actually December of 2021, I got honored for a doctorate in philosophy for Collect the Cash. And it's also my career's work plus the book, and what my mission is to teach small businesses how to manage their AR and manage it better. So that's what came out of deciding to write this book and tell my story, and then now speak for the small business development centers and things of that nature. And now I'm like, okay, how else can we serve? Because now the biggest thing for the book is all the accolades are great. So I've been financed for the book and for the story, but the most important part of all of this was and is leaving a legacy. I believe that we are all here to do service. We are here to make a difference and obviously make a dollar or lots of dollars. In the meantime, I decided that this book needs to be a legacy. It needs to be something that, long after I'm gone, somebody can Google Dee Bowden or Dr. Dee Bowden and say, collect the cash. It's like, oh, she has a book. She's got a course. She's got trainings. She now has this great podcast. She's got information that will teach us what we need to do. And so my goal is to leave a legacy that makes a difference in the dollar, and to make sure that people are set up for success, and then, get them to stop being afraid to collect their cash, but collect their cash. And then, I like to say, go celebrate life the way you celebrate life.
So many things there. I think the first one that I want to touch on is, if you look at the economy of the United States, I forget what percentage of it, probably like 70% of it is a small business. Now, everybody defines small business a little differently.
Exactly.
Small business can be less than 300 employees. Small business can be less than $1 million in revenue. So there are a lot of different ways. So depending on who you ask, I guess.
Right.
Is what makes a small business. If we frame the conversation around a small business with less than 100 employees, let's put it there just for a moment. You think about how you're going to scale, and it's taking advantage of fractional experts, because that's what you are. They're not paying you a salary and 40 hours a week plus benefits and all of that, because particularly for a small business, that doesn't make sense. But that doesn't invalidate the necessity to collect the cash.
Right.
So you can come in on a fractional basis, and for pennies on the dollar, get them what they need and get you what you need.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
in the words of Dr. Stephen Covey, that is a true win-win situation. And for our audience, I love to bring that point up, because in my industry, my company is a cybersecurity focused managed IT company. And I was joking with my engineer the other day that when I go into client calls now, I'm going to tell my clients up front, all right, you are not allowed to say that you are too small. You are not allowed to say that your needs are simple. Because guess what also is simple? Platinum is simple. It's a single element.
Right.
But it's expensive.
Right.
It's one of the most desirable metals on the planet. So when you say things like, I'm too small or my needs are simple, you are not thinking about your business the right way. Now, on the flip side of that, the thing that I love to point out about organizations like yours and organizations like mine is the pennies on the dollar notation. Because if they wanted to hire one full-time collection agent, I know, again, I'm going back to 1997 when I was doing this.
Right.
I was paid a salary of $30,000, plus I got a bump for everything that I collected month in and month out. So I can only guess that if you wanted to hire a single person today, full-time, you're probably paying that person $50,000 or $60,000 plus a clip on top.
Right.
And that's one person.
Right.
So you don't know how good or how bad they're going to do.
True.
And that's the other challenge that small businesses face is one of the advantages, one of the real advantages that larger companies have is they can take advantage of the law of large numbers. I don't need all 10 of my salespeople to sell quota. I need 5 of them to sell quota this month, and I need the other 5 to do something.
Right.
So when you look at it from that perspective, for those of you that are regulars, I'm a huge baseball fan. And
me too.
While I despise the New York Yankees, which I'm guessing you and I have in common, Dee, one of the reasons the Yankees are consistently successful is they have enough capital that they can make bad choices.
But they also have a system.
And they have a system.
All the greats have a system.
Yep.
What, some of it is their daily routine. They exercise, they say their affirmations, they work out, they shoot basketballs, they hit golf balls, they go to the batting cage, whatever. It's a system. And part of how you end up becoming better is you have to create a system. What Mike and I are talking about today is all about systems. Collect the cash is a system. It's problem solving. It's answering the question of what had happened was. Period. That's it. Because until you answer that question, you can't untangle anything else.
Yep.
You can't untangle anything else. And even if your business is small right now and you want to scale, what's your system that's going to get you there? Because as I said earlier, what gets tracked gets measured. So if you want to see how you're going to succeed in the next year, you've got to track what have you done for the last 12 months.
Yeah.
And where are the gaps? What are you missing in technology? Mike was talking about technology. What are you missing in technology? What are you missing in systems? What are you missing in capital? What are you missing in people? What are you missing in resources? What are you missing in yourself as a leader? Have you done any personal development lately? What classes have you taken? What trainings have you read? Mike at the beginning of the conversation said, I'm reading such and such books. Mike was listing books because as a CEO, as a founder, as a president, or as a solopreneur, or a person of many, your personal development is just as important as your team. So they are going to model what they see you doing. That's like behind me. You see all these books. I read on a regular basis, constantly. I'm constantly reading. So
we'll have to do some book swapping sometime in the very near future. Normally, I would have my library behind me.
Yeah,
but I've got somewhere around 250 books, and I've read roughly 2/3 of them. So somewhere around the 200 mark.
Yeah, definitely. And I share that because that's part of how you're going to scale. And the other thing too is you have to be willing to invest in yourself. You have to be willing to invest in yourself. Coaching is important. Mentorship is important. Finding other business owners to collaborate with. Go out and here's another thing. Go out and have some fun. Please go out and have some fun. Please go have some fun. As the weather breaks, please go see the cherry blossoms, or please go to a baseball game. Please go to theater. Please go replenish yourself, because you will be better off if you can make sure you do your self-care as a business owner and encourage your people to do the same. So those are some lessons that I've learned in the past couple of years, that it's really important to do self-care, personal development, and most definitely have some fun. Definitely.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you said a couple of minutes ago, because I think it really crystallizes for businesses a path to success. And that is what we call building a roadmap. So again, I mentioned Dr. Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People earlier. One of the things he talks about is finding your true north.
Yeah.
And knowing where you want to go, and understanding that it's not a straight line, that it's going to go up and down and up and down. And sometimes it'll circle back. But the first item is having that goal in front of you and giving yourself a reasonable time to achieve it. One of the things that my company does, and it sounds like you fit into this model really nicely, is you talk to your customers about, where do you want to be in 12 months, in 18 months, in 24 months? Now, I don't mean for what I do. I mean, where does your business want to be? Because when I understand that, when you understand that, you can begin to make strategic recommendations to help them get there. So I can make strategic cybersecurity and IT recommendations. You can make strategic financial recommendations, all in alignment with, this is where my business is going. Now, that can be, we are moving our office. That could be, we are opening a second office. That could be, we are adding 5 new people to our staff. That could be, we want to grow our revenue by 25% this year. And that's just a short list of the many things that a business needs to really concretely think about. And then lean on resources like yours, resources like mine, to get there. Now, the danger is, I'm smart enough to do this by myself. Instead, you need to be smart enough to recognize I probably can't do this by myself.
Right. Or at least I'll say it this way. You can't do it by yourself for long, because when you get started, all of us get started by ourselves. Like I was saying earlier in the conversation, we all when we start our business, usually it's you see a problem that needs to be addressed, and you believe that your widget, service, whatever is the next best thing to fix this problem. Now, obviously, there's nothing new under the sun. What I do, corporations have whole teams that do what I do, but there isn't anybody that talks about this the way that I do, and is also talking about why it matters for the small and medium-sized companies. Corporations have whole collection departments, have whole accounts receivable departments. They have a collection. They have a CFO or a comptroller, a collections manager. They've got a team of people that can line up and dial for dollars. That's great. But what they're not talking to you about is why you need to track your payments. They're not talking to you about customer service. They're not talking to you about gratitude. They're not talking to you about why, if you don't manage your AR, that you can end up out of business. And you're wondering why your cash flow is stuck is because you haven't tracked it. It's that part of the conversation. So what makes me different is that I'm having this conversation. Now, also what makes me different is that I'm the only person that I know of as far as Forbes is concerned that has actually written an article about me as my title is The Cash Collector. So you can literally punch in Dee Bowden Forbes and read the article that Forbes has said AR matters. And here's why.
Nice. I'll add that link to the show notes as well for our audience. Well, Dr. D, thank you so much. You're welcome. Been fun. It has been educational. It has been entertaining. Frankly, it's been everything that I hoped for today. So thank you for being a wonderful guest today on Mike and Alison After Hours.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And for our viewing and listening audience, please come back in a couple of weeks. We have a great list of guests through the month of July, and we are adding on more and more. So for Dr. Dee Bowden and for Alison Haas, I am Mike Shelah. Thank you for listening to Mike and Alison After Hours. And remember, people helping people. It's powerful stuff.
Thank you for joining Mike and Alison After Hours. Tune in next time for another great business owner sharing valuable industry ideas. Want to be a guest on our show? Contact us at answers@getadvantage.com.